Okay, yes, we're ready. I think we can get started. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Ophir and I will be hosting this webinar with Iris. Hey Iris.
Hey.
We're actually sitting across the room from each other. Hey.
Yeah. Same room.
Hi. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining. First things first, this is a live session, live webinar. We're doing it as we speak. So throughout the webinar, you have the option to ask questions. You have the chat window. I think it's on the right side. You have the chat window. Feel free to ask us questions and we'll address them at the end of this session. So we're trying to make it a short session. We'll have a 30-minute session followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. Again, so feel free to ask away throughout the session. And today, we're going to talk about surprising targeting hacks and kind of a new model developed to help us look at targeting and at our audiences and how to build our audiences in kind of a different way. So let's kind of just jump right into it. Before that, just saying hi, I'm Ophir, I'm hosting it. With me I have Iris, which is kind of a serial entrepreneur, knows the ins and outs of building marketing channels and scaling them.
Yeah, I think that over the last, 15 years, it's a long time, I've been handling marketing from all the different angles, from brand and advertising and content, but I really, really love the numbers and to get everything right, and that's something that we're going to deal with today.
All right, so today's topic, and I think it's kind of a large one and a tricky one, is the hidden power of your website visitors. And you know, I think the interesting thing about this is then we see website visitors, we sometimes see it as a kind of large number, right? Let's say we have 5,000 or 10,000 visitors for our website, but we really kind of see the intricate or the
Yeah, I think it's like we're so used to seeing like all the numbers on Google Analytics or any other analytics tools you're using. And so we all think, okay, so this month we had like 5,000 visitors, 7,000 visitors, but it's really like a large amount of real people that enter your website, saw your messaging, decided whether you want to continue or not. And I was trying to imagine them not just like as a number, but actually like real people. So even if you have like a fairly small website, I'm sure that your visitors during the last year can probably fill a full stadium. And what we're going to deal with today is to really try to think about these people, what they do on your website, which type of prototypes can you see, and how to use it in order to really leverage your advertising and email campaigns.
Perfect. So kind of if we zoom into that image that we just saw, right? We know we have different types of visitors to our website, and here we kind of just named them. We have the visitors with the low engagement, someone who maybe accidentally visited your website and just left. We call those the endies. Apologies for any endies joining us in this session. We have the somewhat engaged, right? Showed intent, but maybe did not buy, or took for certain steps of the funnels, but maybe did not complete it. And then we have our Julias, right? Our super engaged users who completed the funnel, or highly engaged returning customers in some ways. And when we think about our visitors and we kind of segment them that way, we say, all right, so who should we target out of these three? And the logical answer to that would be, you know, we want more Julias, of course, because we want more of those users who are buying our products. But it's actually more tricky than that as you come to think about it, right? Because your audiences or your target audience, your best one, is usually pretty small, right? If we're looking at this, like this is the average. If we have 1,000 visitors a day, then we'll probably only have around 5 Julias, right? So there's a large gap to fill in between your how can I bring in more Julias to how can I bring in fewer Andys. And so there's kind of a large gap there. And Iris, you kind of built a model to kind of complete that.
That's usually, as marketers, we try to think of we usually think of a very simple funnel of, let's say, for example, like visitors add to cart purchase, or visitors sign up and started a trial. And usually we always have the eyes on the prize, which is like the Julias, but we miss everything in between. And I think that, and we're going to discuss it much more details about the targeting options on Facebook and Google, but that's a very tricky one if you want to always keep your eyes on Julia's, because you can't do much with it. And what we're going to show you today is how to think of like more levels of engagement. So it's like kind of like 50 shades of targeting. So instead of just segmenting your audience by very basic events, for example, like visitors, add to cart, purchase, and that's it, to really try to create different segments with different meaning and different type of behavior, and test which kind of segment is your sweet spot, because usually it's really hard to get to your sweet spot only with the Julias, because you don't have enough of them.
Right. And so for that, we created this spreadsheet that we'll share right after this session. And in this spreadsheet, Iris, do you want to kind of talk about?
So over here, this is like an example of how the 10 levels of engagement can look like. And what we're doing very differently from the models that you usually think it is that instead of building like a very specific funnel, it's more about taking like baby steps of the engagement within the website. So for example, level 1 is someone that didn't do anything at your website. And level 2 is someone that maybe visited only like another page, or someone that even like scrolled. That's also like a huge difference. You're probably going to see that 50% of the users that arrived to your website just left without doing anything. And level 3 can be someone that visited maybe more than 2 pages, or someone that visited one of your key pages, like the pricing page or the sign-up page, or someone that performed a different action on your website, like performing a search. Level 4 can be someone that performed a meaningful event, like sign up to your blog, starting the sign-up funnel, using the contact us form. So it's really trying to think about like, okay, so what is the next like tiny level that your user can take in order to see that there is like a higher intent or more engagement, and then to create this spectrum. I do want to highlight that maybe for some of you 5 levels will be enough, and for others it's 20, but it's mainly about like trying to have like a much wider vision about your users and really try to create micro segments instead of like 2 or 3 large ones.
Yeah, and just a quick note, we will be sharing this spreadsheet with you. This is a template that we created that will help you build your levels. So after this session, we will be sharing this with
you. So you can see there are 2 sheets over here. One is the sample data. So this is just an example to give you ideas. And there's another sheet where you can enter your details. This is a read-only file, so just duplicate it and then enter all your info. And I do think that even if you want and continue to the next steps of targeting on Facebook and Google and MailChimp, which we do advise to continue, of course, but I think that even that this exercise of just thinking about your funnel in a different way and thinking about the baby steps within the website will really help you to optimize the website and to understand your visitors better.
Right. And so now, as we kind of know how to, or we discuss how to build that model, let's talk about how to actually use it in real life in terms of targeting the right people.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with Facebook and Instagram. And every time I refer to Facebook, I refer to Instagram as well, because the targeting methods are the same. And so most of you probably advertise on Facebook. Most of you probably know the lookalike audiences. If you don't know it, so this is kind of like the basic targeting method on Facebook, where you can create a seed. Seed is the list of users, or it can be an event that you use on your website. For example, every user that signs up. And Facebook takes like a seed of users and try to find all the correlation between them. So nobody really knows what happens behind the curtain, but Facebook try to look for the age, gender, geo, but also more advanced stuff like groups they're part of, events they attended, websites they visit. We know that Facebook knows everything about us, so over here they also correlate between the groups. And then from a seed of like a few hundreds or a few thousand of users, they're able to create an audience of about like 1 million users that have some kind of a similarity. And you can see like the minimum seed that you can use is 100 users. That's also very tricky, because in most cases you need it from the same geo or you need to upload the list of users, and Facebook won't find matches for all of them. So in most cases, you'll probably need a few hundreds of users in order to create it. And the recommended seed for an audience is like 1,000 users, and you're probably going to get the best results with like 10,000 users or more. It really varies from one website to another. So let's say, for example, that you're selling like cosmetics in LA, it's something very local, and you have like women coming from the same age group, same location. So it might work out with a very small seed, but in most cases, you'll need a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand in order to get to these results. And here comes the main problem, that you don't have enough Julias. And this is like the topic of the webinar today, that we're always targeting like the best users, but we don't have enough of them for the way that Facebook and Google really target the users. So over here you can see that the same lookalike audience will be created with the same size, no matter what the seed size is. So if you have like entities that are pretty large, it's going to work. You're going to find better similarities than the Julias. And what is really interesting that you can find you over here, you really need to look for the right balance. So you never know where Facebook will optimize best the tipping point between having like the right kind of users, like the users with the highest intent, and the users that you have a seed that is large enough of that you can create a good audience. So sometimes it can be level 10, sometimes it can even be like level 2 or level 3. And over here, like I think that the test can really help you optimize your Facebook ads. Another thing that you need to take into consideration is the overlap between the audiences. So what we advise right now is to create like 5 levels, 10 levels, 20 levels of users, and to really discover what is a lookalike audience that works best for you. By the way, once you find it, because it's so large, you can usually use it for a while. But in many cases, the audiences are going to be very similar. So for example, you might find out that that's level 7 and level 8 are almost the same when you create lookalike audience. There are no actual rules. So I know that for me, sometimes I upload lists that are really similar. For example, like they're 90% similar. And sometimes the lookalike audience that are created by Facebook are going to be almost the same. And sometimes I find only like 10% of correlation. That means like they're targeting very different segments of users. And you can actually use Facebook to discover if they are the same or not so. And that's really simple. So just go to the audiences and click on two audiences, and then click on the show audience overlap. And over here you can see, for example, for these two audiences that we have almost 80% of correlation. It means that you usually won't try both of them. You're probably going to get more or less the same results. Maybe you can try both of them, but if you have limited resources, both like time or money, I would focus on the groups that don't really overlap. What you can do, what it is very interesting, if you have a high overlap, is to exclude one level from the other. So let's say, for example, that you have like level 9 that works really well for you, and you want to remove all the users that just visited your website without doing nothing. So you create 2 lookalikes, and then you can remove all the overlap, and then you're probably going to have much better results. And let's also discuss objective. So I think this is also like one of the key ways to optimize your Facebook ads. If you don't know objectives, then every ad set on Facebook has what's called an objective. So you can tell Facebook, I want people that we're targeting on this ad set to either click on the website, to enter the website, to like the website. But in most cases, you would like them to perform some kind of event. For example, to sign up or to add to carts. And over here, it's much more tricky, even than the lookalikes, because over here you need a large number of users that performed a certain event every day. So if you can move on to the next slide. Sure. Over here, you can see the minimum number of objectives you need per ad set per day. So that means, for example, if you're targeting only, say, on Oribi for us level 10 are paying customers that choose like the highest package. And you need, for minimum, like for it to work, 8 of these customers every day, but it's come only from Facebook and only from this ad set. So that is usually very limited. By the way, if you're not using an objective and you're just referring people to your website, I would highly, highly recommend to start it now. Usually, even between level 1 and level 2, even if you just tell Facebook, I don't want people just to enter my website, I want people that viewed more than one page, this will really help you to optimize the results. Usually, the people that are like the entiers, the level 1, will include those of people like my mother. I'm hoping that she's not watching the webinar now, that she's just like clicking random ads. And because you do get always like lots of random people look for something else, click on ads by mistake, and you really want to eliminate them. And so if we're talking about the ad set objective, you need a high count. And that's why the levels are going to really help you, because you can find the level with the right balance of enough clicks and enough intent. Okay, now let's talk about Google Ads. And this is kind of the same. So with Google Ads and the targeting options bidding strategy that is usually recommended is what's called CPA, it's cost per acquisition. You want to tell Google, I don't want just clicks, I want people that sign up, that purchase, that started a trial, because this is what is going to help Google to show your ad and to optimize the bid by the type of users that are more likely to perform an acquisition. Now the question that is being asked is, what is the acquisition? It can be any event on your website, but Google lets you define only one of them. So that's really that's also over here. That's also tricky because the minimal numbers that Google requires, is usually like 30 conversions per month. It's kind of like I wouldn't take this advice, because when you look at a full month, you don't want to waste the budget of the first couple of weeks for them to collect data. So you usually will need the data faster. So you usually need a couple of hundreds of conversions per campaign every month. And over here as well, so you need the minimum number of users. You don't have enough Julias, but you also want to create the right intent. So it's also like looking for the right balance, same as Facebook. Something that I wanted to show you is that, and that's something that is fairly new, is that usually on Google you have the conversions, and that's something that is for the entire account. So you select that, for example, your conversion is sign up or purchases. But now you can select under the settings the conversion as choose conversion action, and then you can choose different action per campaign. And then you can optimize it by the type of campaign and by the budget that you have per campaign, and you're more likely to see really good results. And that's the last thing that I want to show you with Google. And since with Google, it's all about understanding your keywords. So that's something that we always try to, either on search, but also on YouTube. You know that we advertise a lot on YouTube, and we always try to optimize the keywords. And usually you have just like the CTR, how many people clicked on it, and the conversion, like how many people signed up or purchased. But you also want to see all the levels in between. That's something that is really going to help you optimize the keywords. So what we're usually looking for is not just the end conversion, but also to see all the different levels. So over here, for example, you can see this is an interesting example of a keyword that we found that provided us like lots of signups, but you can see that there are, for like the second row on the table, that there were like 0 installs and 0 people that even got to the installation instructions. So we saw that something is broken over there. So the levels is also going to help you optimize the keywords and really help you to understand where do these kinds of users with these keywords get to.
All right, now let's move on to your emails, your email audience, and specifically for MailChimp. So I think most of us know or are aware that email is probably one of our top, like most important assets. The emails that we gather, we spend so much time collecting emails, right? But I think at the end of the day, in many cases, we just send them generic emails. And think about how many times you get an email a day, like with a generic title, you never want to open it, and you think, like this company or they don't really know where I'm at or what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's fine. Like we spend so much time as marketers to collect emails, and this is like our gold mine, and we sort like my precious, and this is our list, and we do every hack possible on the website to really collect another email and another one and another to the list, and then we just like send the generic email to all of them.
Exactly. And so the 10-level model can be used for emails as well, right? If we want to target more Julias, then we can send Julias a specific email for highly engaged users. However, Ethan, who has never bought in the past, our engagement level 5, we want to send them a slightly different email with a title that's more targeted towards them, right? And so messaging people based on their level or where they're at in terms of their engagement with your website is key to getting them engaged, right? And the results can be dramatic, right? Think about if we're looking at the industry standards of open rate around 20%, give or take, and click-through rate around 2%. If you can send targeted titles and targeted emails or relevant emails for specific audiences, you can increase that dramatically. And the numbers here are crazy. Again, email is such a high value asset for us.
Yeah, I know it might sound a lot to have like 10 versions of email. It doesn't say that you have like to use like 10 versions, maybe 3 will be enough or 5. But even just changing the subject line for people that don't remember who you are or don't know what your brand is, the people that really like your brand can do magic.
Exactly. And just as an example from MailChimp, and that's what we do, right? We have our level 6, which we call Fiona's. And in this example, this is for an e-commerce shop. And I can just segment those users and send them targeted emails. In this case, you can see this is all the people that have visited our website, have added something to their cart, have engaged with our last campaign, which was the new shoes launch, right? But have never bought. And then I can send them emails about our new line of products or target them specifically for the things they're interested in. So this is, I think, a really high value asset. And once we segment them, it can really dramatically increase our sales without having to search for new audiences or new target audience.
Yeah, by the way, having the good segments by level can also really help you to analyze your emails, because you might find out that an email that you saw that didn't perform well and had only like 5% open rate was opened only by users from the level that you're targeting, either from high level or low level. So it's something that can really help you to take your analytics of the email campaigns to the next level.
Exactly. All right, so kind of moving on to the more hands-on portion of our session. So we just told you about the model, and let's say you already built the model, but kind of how do you create your audiences with it? How do you track the data? How do you know if you're being successful? And to show you how we use it, I'm going to show you how we use it at Oribi, on Oribi. But before that, let's just talk for 2 minutes, shameless plug here, on what Oribi does. Because we use actually our own product to export these events to all these platforms. And so what we do and what we believe in is that the analytics can be or needs to be for everyone. It should be simple. It should be based on data, right? But it should also be action oriented. So not just drowning in a lot of reports, not knowing what the next step is, but actually understanding, all right, so I need to invest in this or I need to do that. And so that's the platform that we're building. And we do that by 3 things that I will talk today about 2 of them, but just kind of very high level about these things. The first one is codeless events, which is, I think, a really key part. The ability to understand or to track Oribi automatically tracks everything that goes on your website or digital assets. So any change, any new buttons that are added, any new pages that are added, you don't need to go to a developer, wait for 2 weeks for them to add it, and then it wasn't tracked correctly, and then you have to redo it. So it does that automatically. We want
to give marketers the freedom to collect the data about themselves. I know how frustrating it can be that you want to track a specific action. Like, for example, we wanted to know how many people signed up to the webinar, from which channel they got, if there's a correlation between paying customers and users that sign up to the webinar, and we did it by ourselves. We didn't have to wait for a developer to integrate an event and then wait for the data. And so just to give you the freedom to act by yourself.
Exactly, and I'm going to show you how we do it in a second. So the second thing, and we won't dive into that during this webinar, is the action items, right? So not just, again, a lot of reports, but actually what should I do? Where should I invest? What should I do tomorrow morning? Which channels should I invest my time and efforts on? And then the third part is, all right, so we have all this, we have this data and we have our clear action items. How do we send them? How do we build better lookalikes? And I think this is the focus of this webinar. How do we build better lookalikes? How do we send targeted emails? And I'm going to show you that in a second. All right, let's jump into Oribi. So this is actually Oribi on Oribi. This is how we track Oribi on Oribi. And what I want to do here is I want to show you how we measure a specific part of the funnel. Now, this is how our one of our landing pages look like. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to define specific level. Let's say in this case it's level 6, and those are our Fionas. And in this case, we're seeing that we're asking our customers to choose which type of one of these describe you best. And we want to, in this case, measure only the people who clicked on e-commerce, right? And so what we want to do is we just go into Oribi. We say, hey, I want to choose the people that have clicked on e-commerce. There it is, right? Yes, this is the button that I want. And it shows me I'm seeing that on 9 pages. Perfect. I want all these pages. I pin this event. I give it a name. In this case, let's call it, I don't know, let's call it level 6 Fionas, right? Level 6 Fiona. And in this case, we'll also add e-commerce 6. And that's it. And Oribi will track this, and it actually will show us all the data that it collected already there. So because it tracks everything automatically, it's not from the minute that I define it moving forward, but I can see all the data here. And in this case, I can see I had 1,800 Fionas, and I can also see a trend line here, and I see something happening here. Oh, this is cool. So we had a traffic spike in Fionas from YouTube, 461 visitors, level 6 visitors came from YouTube, clicked on e-commerce, versus the average daily of 277 visitors. This might be something that I would want to look deeper into as well. And so this shows me everything that happened. And if I scroll down, I can see it by channels. Where did I get most of these people from? So I can see that I got most of them from direct and from YouTube, right? We saw the increase earlier. However, I see that Google Organic in this case have brought fewer people, but their conversion rate, or the people that have clicked on e-commerce, was significantly higher.
Yeah, so it really helps you to match the intent between the channel and the visitor, and really to see like which level they're at.
Exactly. All right. And once I created those Fionas, people who clicked on that, I can then start exporting that to my other platforms. So I can choose, I want level 6 Fionas. And now I can export this event as is to either Facebook ads, Google Analytics and ads, and to MailChimp. In this case, I'll show you how I can export this into Facebook ads.
Yeah,
right?
So we were talking before about the frustration of needing a new event. For example, you want to try out new lookalikes and new targeting on Facebook. You need to approach a developer to add an event. And over here, we can just send the same event to all the platforms. So without using codes, and to make sure you're using the same event. Another cool hack that you can use using Oribi is to actually group different events that are not really related. So you can't do it on Facebook or Google. But let's say, for example, that I want my level 5 to be any user that had some intent. So it can be either signing up to a webinar, downloading an ebook, subscribing to the blog. So you can just define all these events together, all the buttons together without any code, and to say it's enough that someone performed only one of these events and to send them as a whole, and to have Facebook or Google to target according to these events.
Yeah, exactly. What's also cool and I can do here is once I export it into Facebook, I can then go into Facebook ads. This is our Facebook ads account, and create a custom audience based on our level 6. There it is. And that's it. And then I can create also a lookalike audience based on those Fionas, on those people, again, who clicked on e-commerce button on Oribi's onboarding process.
Yeah. So we just show you live how to create a level, and I think it took us like 1 minute.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's something that you can create all the different like shades of targeting in 10, 20 minutes, and then to see all the results and to try different targeting.
Exactly. And another cool thing that I wanted to show you is Oribi's visitor journey feature. And this is a cool feature because it shows you everything that the users did throughout their session or multi-session throughout multiple domains if you have those, right? And in this case, by the way, you're seeing anonymous visitors because we naturally did not want to share known visitors. But once you integrate emails into that, you also have the emails of your visitors, which is pretty useful in case I want to export the lists and then import them and build lookalikes based on those. And I can do pretty cool things here. Let's say out of the people or the visitors for my website, I only want to look at people who had more than 3 sessions. And in this case, let's say North American visitors, so US and Canada, right? And then once I do that, it filters only those people, and I can export that list into a spreadsheet, then import it into both Facebook, Google, again, YouTube, Instagram, the same, right? And have a list of people who are highly engaged, which I really wouldn't be able to do any other way.
Yeah, so usually when you create lookalikes on Facebook, it's really based on an event. But over here, you can add other rules, like someone that visited more than one page, someone that visited my website more than once, someone that came from mobile, someone that didn't arrive from mobile. And you can really easily create lots of variations that you can try out and to really find the right segment for you.
Exactly. And so one of the things that we also did is you might be wondering, or how can I have enough data to decide, or how can I know what are my levels? Let's say I have 10 levels. I want to create 10 levels. I know my Fionas. I know my Andes. How can I think of everything kind of in the middle? So another feature that we used to kind of decide on that was our visitor journey aggregator. And what it does is it kind of aggregates all the journeys naturally, and it shows you kind of the most common paths to a specific target, right? So in this case, let's just say I want all the people who clicked on request a demo on my website, in this case, let's say in the last 7 days, and show me the most common paths that they took. And this really helped me. If I thought maybe my pricing page is one of those levels, this kind of gives you more ideas on how to build those levels. In this case, okay, we have the homepage, but we see here that this is the LP10. This is Oribi's kind of main landing page, right? And then I see that this might be something that I would want to put, let's say, level 5, right?
Yeah, so I mentioned before using the key pages in order to create the levels. And I think the good question is, what are my key pages? Because you usually know how many people visited each page and maybe to which other pages they went to later. But the main question that you want to ask out of the people that are Julia's, which pages did they visit before? And like something that really surprised us is that we were sure that like the product page is something that is a key page, but we found out that the pricing page is much, much more important. So we changed the scoring between them and changed how we divide them between the levels.
Exactly. And so, Oribi has tons of other features, but kind of to focus on the topic of this webinar, we wanted to focus on how you export, how you can use those features and use that kind of codeless event tracking to send the smart events and build your 10 level model. All right. So kind of before we go to our Q&A session, if you want to build your own or need help building your own 10 level model or understanding how to export those events to create your Facebook and Google and MailChimp smart audiences, then on the right side of your screen right now, you should be seeing the ability to schedule a product tool with one of our conversion experts. These are just 3. We have many more.
But they're all as nice as the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can kind of get tips and get our help in
They
optimizing
can really
that.
help you to analyze your data. So you can sign up to Oribi and install the product. That's also really easy. And for most platforms, there's a plugin, so you don't need to even use code. And then they can walk you through your data and to help you build different models and to help you learn how to optimize it and also use Facebook and Google Ads better.
Perfect. All right, now moving on to our Q&A session. First of all, first question. Yes, this session is being recorded, and we will send you the recording over email once the session ends. No worries about that. We'll also, as I mentioned earlier, share the model itself. So no worries.
I hope that the leader asked this question, he or she are still here.
Yeah.
They are still
Yeah, exactly. Another question. Using Oribi, can we measure the number of visitors to the websites?
That's easy.
Yeah, exactly. That's
we can measure how many visitors performed each action, each combinations of actions, and much more data.
Yeah, so you would want to start with looking at how many people visited your website, but kind of, if we're looking at a deeper level, let's look at what we really want to measure. We want to measure the conversion to button clicks. We want to measure the conversion to paying customers. We want to measure how specific our individual pages are doing compared to others. Did this change that we make actually was worthwhile? Right? That's kind of where Oribi focuses. We can track all your website visitors, of course. I think what's really cool is how deep we can get.
Yeah, we can track exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. All right. So another question: how does a Facebook pixel tracking feature into all this?
Okay, so what we're doing, and we're going to get a bit technical here, and I think that for some of you it's not really interesting, like the behind the curtain and how this machine works, but Facebook actually released a few months ago a really cool feature that is called S2S events. It really enables you to send events throughout different servers. You can collect data and then send it over, but it will keep all the information about the user. So we know how to retarget users and so on. So once we identify an event on Oribi, we send this data to Facebook. So it's the same as if you ask the developer to add an event. It will work exactly the same. You will get exactly the same audience, but you can do it without code and with more versions and adding more rules that you don't have when using code.
Perfect. All right, another question. Is there a limit on the number of events that we can export? So
no.
There's no limit. You saw on Oribi, we export right now
Yeah, I
around.
see that we export over 50 events. Usually you don't need so many, but you probably want to test different combinations. So yeah,
Okay.
No limit.
Another question. Do you also have something for marketing agencies?
So yeah, definitely. And I'll say that today about 20% of Oribi customers are marketing agencies. So you have like more options. I think that the cool thing is even if you're not a marketing agency, you probably get tools that will help you have results similar to a marketing agency, but we have lots of specific tools for marketing agencies, and you're welcome to schedule a product tour or to check out the website.
Cool. And I think we have time for one more question. We constantly test and change our button labels. Does Oribi update the events exported to other platforms?
Yeah, so what's cool about the Colos events, and that's something that we really invested a lot at, is for them to be dynamic. And because we know that website changes all the time, and that's also like a huge headache that you need to ask developers to change the event you send to Facebook and HubSpot and Google and so on, and every time you change something. So you can define Colos events either by label, but you can also define them by other rules, like the link that they refer to, and so on. And then it will be dynamic, and it will create the same event, even if you change the labels, the name of the button, the placement, the design, everything else. Even if you do like A/B testing, you can merge all together.
And I think that maybe relates to the next question that we received. How is Oribi different than Google Analytics? Right.
Okay. So actually, the reason that we started Oribi is because we saw how much people don't like Google Analytics. So this is like, I think, the king of analytics today. Everybody uses it. It's probably for most companies kind of like the only alternative because there aren't many competitors, only for like enterprise companies and very technical companies. And the Oribi is different mainly by two aspects. The first one is that it's codeless. So in order to define all the data, collect all the events, you don't need developers, you can do it by yourself. And we really believe in like freedom to the marketing team. We don't want you to be dependent on your developers. And I know that many companies, they don't have a dev team, and other companies, they need permissions in order to redeploy the website, in order to add a new event, anything that can break the website, and that's something that can't happen with Oribi, where we use the codeless events. It doesn't change the structure of the website, so it's harmless. And the other key difference is that we have a very different approach to data. I think that there are some data geeks that really like to just like dive into the 400 different reports that Google Analytics offers, but most of us like the creative part about marketing, and we don't like our Google Analytics day of the week. So with really everything is much more simple, beautiful, actionable. You'll get more insights, more highlights about trends, more actionable data. It really aims like to help you decide what to do next instead of just like pouring more and more data and expecting you to do something with it.
Perfect. So I think that's all the time we have for questions there. We got tons of questions. So we will be emailing you individually, answering any question that you asked throughout this session. So no worries. Even if you asked a question and we didn't get a chance to answer right now, we will get back to you answering all your questions.
Okay, so
thank you very much.
Thank you all of you. It was really great to see so many people attending this webinar. And we'll be emailing you the Excel file with the 10 levels of engagement model, and we'll email you some tutorials on how to create the lookalikes and an objective. So everything you need is going to be emailed to you.
Thank you very much and have a great day.